put this out. And it's like, I mean, Lucy just went, I don't know what to do. And so look at the captain twirled around and just swished her tail and casually walked on as my silly dog sat there and looked at me. I mean, it would chase us. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, I'm Marilyn Rod. Mika, nice to meet you.
Yeah, so those are all the things, and we asked similar questions, and then what projects and other articles that you see on it, and then what other questions. So I think we're going to do something. And the roadmap as well.
We got a friend that checked into the brand.
So funny, she said, I can't even remember. Topics over there that are not profitable yet. So, the story would have different. Something else. And he said, which one of these 7 different projects is right for them? And they would say, I need a priorities. So we would aggregate all of that. And then what came very quickly was the full economic development. So, and the people business stuff. So with X amount of money, we have to build those highest priorities for the next budget. And usually the budget is so it really gives you what you need as far as dollars. I love politics. And then things that work there. So we had to put something Of course it was. Oh my God. Of course it was.
That's 3D, but these are pictures throughout the diary.
Stories to one story.
I was trying to find someone that they love with pictures of animation, but I guess not. I had tons
Some of the pancakes are the same size, some more. We just put that there.
Are you out of here tomorrow night? Or are you going to come to the party? That way you're on. Fly direct?
That's right. Might have to
I just felt like you were.
I like my granddaughter.
This way because
I try not to get involved in it. There, I'm an agent. I cannot just take one. Well, there's two. There's a purple one too. I love these things. I had to take vitamin C for like 50 days. What are they? I got sugar. That's not vitamin C. I got the big, huge gummy vitamin C. Like 4 of them a day. And I got some gummy calcium too. I love gummy. Well, I do too. But they're not good for your teeth. But they're my favorite. That's good. See, I'm not a chocolate person. I know some I don't know. You might not be there. I don't think everybody's on there.
Hello. Hi, friends. You can meander to a spot. We're going to get started with our program in just a second. Can folks in the back hear me? Okay. Then we're going to turn it up. And we're going to turn it up. Okay. Welcome to Ascension School. My name is Amy Jane, and I'm really excited to be with you here. I'm the executive director. You're going to meet a whole lot of staff this weekend. Bishop Pat will do formal introductions of everybody at some point. But I just wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. You checked in with Lisa, and if you have any further questions about your registration or your schedule, all the things, she is here for you. Or you can ask a friend too. All right. For those of you who are staying on campus, this is a pretty dark campus at night. When you leave here tonight, it's going to be a bit dark, so we encourage you to turn on your cell phone flashlights and walk on lighted paths, because we are in the wilderness a bit. There are bathrooms over here to your left. There are bathrooms in Founders Hall. There are bathrooms in Kimsey. They're everywhere. You do have a map in your bag, which will help you get around campus, and there's signs scattered about. One thing that is new this year for convention is you're gonna notice like your cups, your plates, your bowls, a lot of things are compostable. And in line with our value of creation care here at Ascension School, we are composting as much as we possibly can. So you're gonna notice these cool little bucket things here. They say compost chick on the side of them. We have a former camper who actually has a business here in LeGrand called the Compost Chick. So, yeah. She's saving the world. It's wonderful. And we just encourage you to please put everything that is compostable in there, and she comes and picks it up and adds it to life, back to the earth. All right, so I'm going to invite Bishop Pat to come on up, and we're going to get started with our program.
Well, good evening, everyone. First order of business is to invite our Secretary of Convention to come forward and affirm that as we move into business once again, reconvene from last night's beginnings of our business meeting, that we have enough people to do anything we need to do.
I'm afraid to touch it. So, we needed 10 parishes for a parish quorum. We have 15. We needed 31 delegates. We have 36. And we needed 13 clergy, and we have 18. So we have a quorum in all orders.
So officially we are reconvening our business sessions, our gathering together, and you might be thrilled to know that at this point, unless something comes up from any of you or from a group, we have no official action of business that we have to do through the rest of our weekend. We've done that very intentionally with the hope that we can just focus our time to be together, to share together in this time, to be present to one another, and to really just let it be an opportunity for learning and growth and spiritual vitality amongst one another, and not having to argue over any particular item. So we don't have any business to cover, but we certainly have the good business of being the followers of Jesus in this place, and to share with that. And I just want you to know what a joy it is to look out and see all of you here. What a gift. And I'll make a few more comments even before my address in a moment. But I'd like to invite the Reverend Marilyn Roth forward and offer prayer as we begin, if you would, please.
While we quiet our hearts, if you could please stand if you're able. Great. Loving and bountiful God, you are the God of all creativity. You created the world out of nothing. You spoke everything into existence, and all of us are the result of your incredible creativity. We ask for that creativity to flow through us this weekend. As we listen to Tom Brackett and attend workshops, may your Holy Spirit inspire us with fresh perspectives and innovative solutions. Help us to think outside the box and see things in new ways. We celebrate 100 years of Ascension Camp and School and its ongoing presence in the lives of people who have stepped onto this sacred ground. And above all, Lord, may we walk alongside each other with humble and thankful hearts. Amen.
Amen.
Just a couple more announcements. First of all, remember that tomorrow, because we got our business done, we don't have to convene until 9 a.m. here. And the rest of the schedule is in your bags. Please, in Kimsey Commons, which is not here, it's there. There are displays. So please take a look, take a gander, see what's up there. You might find something interesting. And in the morning, we will have, Georgia Jacoby will give you tours of the archives. So please convene down there at the archive building. There is a map, consult the map. I'm directionally challenged. If I tell you it's that way, it might not be, so look at your map. What time is that, Georgia?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock. So there is a reason to be up and about at 8 a.m. I think also for those of you who are staying on campus, if I'm not mistaken, there is a continental breakfast starting at 7:30. Yeah, just for people staying on campus. The rest of us, we go to McDonald's. So, just remember these things, and I think that's all I have. So, thank you.
Charlotte, where is the continental breakfast?
Oh, that's going to be in Founders where you all registered. Thank you.
Are there any questions before we get started to make sure that everybody has what you need for this weekend? You know where you're staying, hopefully, and have either checked in or found your room here. Any questions about the weekend that we can help answer to make sure that you feel comfortable finding your way through this time together? Well, if you're too bashful to ask that in public, you see two people up at this table to ask, don't ask me. You want accurate information, so ask them, if you would. And what a treat to just be in this space. I'm just going to invite you to take a moment, if you haven't looked out that back window, just to center yourselves for a moment in this sacred space where for generations untold, peoples have gathered in this valley to be together, to pray and to do ceremony, to learn from one another, to trade stories and items, to be together. And so we have the privilege of stepping into this very sacred space now for 100 years with the Camp and Conference Center. Tomorrow night, we're pulling out all the stops. We're having a birthday party. And amongst many other things, layers of opportunity this weekend, particularly as we also share with you, and although many of you are already aware of the efforts with the capital campaign, we'll be instructing you on all of that, and we have the real privilege of having Mika Vanderstal here, who I will introduce in the morning, who is with a part of the consulting firm who've done just such an outstanding job of helping us get started in that campaign. But all sorts of really good, exciting efforts together this weekend. And I'm going to ask, I know that there are always, hopefully, some who are new, and I don't want to put you on the spot, and I'm not asking our guests, who I will, by the way, be introducing all of our guests, including our special speaker, Tom Brackett, and Mika tomorrow, but our other guests, along with recognition of our leadership in the diocese tomorrow. We'll do all that in the first thing in the morning. But I would love to honor those of you who are from the diocese and are representing a congregation, and you are here for your very first convention. Would you be willing, if you're so willing, would you please stand and allow us to honor your presence and to welcome you back? Wonderful to have you four here. And I was trying to think of some way to find out who's been coming to conventions the longest here, but then I was afraid that if I did that, and you know me, I have a penchant to call out some people, but I don't want to embarrass anybody, so I'm going to try to learn as an older adult now to keep my mouth shut. I thought, I don't want to embarrass anybody by saying, you've been coming how many years? But we have some folks here who have been coming for decades and a part of that. And so for those of you who are new or relatively new, look around. There are folks here who understand this process far better than people even like me. So seek them out. We invite you to have a very special weekend in this very special space. And frankly, with some very special people. You are such a gift. You are amazing people. And I just want you to know that. And if we need to put that sign up on your mirror for the weekend, we will send one home with you to remind you. A couple things that I want to note before I launch into my address this evening. While we're celebrating 100 years of camping from 1924 when Bishop Remington, as a part of that, that was one of those, frankly, we're going to be talking about innovation this weekend and what it means to be a people willing to be able to grow and change. And how do we adapt? And certainly one of the adaptations that came in the 1920s or that period was the camping system. Camps were popping up all over the country, and fortunately we had an amazing gift of this space that had been laying really kind of dormant for a good almost 30 years to suddenly come alive, in which we were able to share with that. One of the things that I wanted to mention, though, because we are at something of a milestone for it, was even older than that, was the girls' finishing school, which was the origination of Ascension School, Camp and Conference Center. And just last month was the 140th anniversary of the opening of that girls' school on September 4th in 1884. So keep in mind that we're also recognizing a ministry that hopefully had some real bearing and power to it and foresight of what that might have been over those 10 years or so that school operated, so acknowledging that. I want to point out a couple of things that some of you are aware of, some of you may not be. Our first bishop, when we were established as a missionary diocese in 1907, the House of Bishops on a third ballot elected Robert Paddock to be our first bishop. It's interesting when you think about the Paddock family. His father was the bishop of the Diocese of Olympia, just north of us. His uncle was the bishop of the Diocese of New York. And so Bishop Paddock came to us with a vision and his own dream of what it might be for the Episcopal Church to find a footing within Eastern Oregon. And we're privileged today that, and I just want to point them out because they're very special to me. I hope they are to you, but the communion set that's on our table that you see and we'll be using again on Sunday morning is Bishop Paddock's travel set. And of course, you know how they traveled in 1907 around Eastern Oregon. You needed these on. And, it was a slow process, but a rich and varied ministry that Bishop Paddock provided. Some of you should know, too, if I've not done this before, and I promise my address is a little bit shorter this year, I think, so I'm going to use a little of this time. But Bishop Paddock, if you ever get a chance to read his biography, had a name that has kind of gone down in infamy. Bishop Paddock was known because of his work in the Proto-Cathedral back in New York, was known as Red Light Bobby. Red Light Bobby. And the reason was that part of Bishop Paddock's passion was to help the women who were in that particular trade in New York. And so he was serving them to help them out of that lifestyle and find some dignity and help even in the midst of it. So he became derided as Red Light Bobby, and that's who our first bishop was. So hey, we're in good company, are we not? So we have that communion set. I also wear Bishop Paddock's ring. And of course, this belongs to the diocese. It will go back to the diocese when I leave. But this is his original bloodstone ring with the original seal for the Diocese of Eastern Oregon. We just came into possession of the most profound, wonderful gift. And I'm going to designate, you know me, I hope by now most of you should know me pretty well. I'm not into a lot of high ceremony. So how many times have I ever sat in a bishop's chair in your places? Well, we now have a new bishop's chair over here by the table, and I'm leaving it out for you to experience. This chair came into our possession, and it is, believe it or not, it is Bishop Paddock's rocking chair. His name is on the back of it, and it is the most lovely piece, and I put it out because I invite you to take an opportunity to come sit in it. Treasure it for a moment, to the connection to our very limited, short history in this space, frankly, but I think profound history. And particularly, not only is it a lovely seated chair, it's very comfortable, but it creaks. So if you fall asleep in it, that's okay, just not during my address. Okay? So please come and experience something of our history, and it will be here on site for time to come. With that, the last thing I want to do before I share my address is I'm going to ask Helen. Where's Helen Brisson? Where are you? Helen, would you come up, please? I know this. You're going to love me for this. Oh, that's why I didn't warn her ahead, because I knew I'd be in trouble. Helen is an artist whose work I know you've all seen many times before, particularly some of the absolutely stunning vestments and frontals and work that she creates. And if you could just, she has shared some of that with us over the years. If you just go in and look online to the kind of creative work she's done. But Helen has been so gracious to us to help us talk about the innovation. How do we change? How do we adapt? How do we look for a future that may look a bit different? And as you're aware, we changed the logo for the diocese, moving away from the wagon wheels and the colonialism that represented, and moving away from the bishop's mitre hat, which at least we haven't seen in a good number of our bishops over the years, and something that spoke to space and holy ground. And so we came up with that image that we've been using now for the last year, and Helen, in her graciousness, has created for us a couple of new banners, one of which you will see tomorrow. So that's Amy's category. She gets to present that. But I want to draw your attention to this stunning new banner for the diocese that Helen has created for us. And I'd like for you to join with me and with her as we dedicate it for our image of our future together. And if you're so able and willing again, if you would please stand and let us join together. I think you can hear me in the back. Anne-Marie, can you hear me okay? That's good, because you know me, if I have to be constrained by a microphone, I don't know how I'm going to preach tonight. But if you can hear me, I'm just going to stand here. Would you just reach out a hand and join with me in blessing this image of our life together in the future? The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Thank you. Let us pray. Most gracious and loving God, we are reminded, Creator, that we stand on Mother Earth, this island home, in which you have placed us to be guardians and caretakers, and be mindful that we are people of the earth, that we are people who look to the mountains and hope, particularly those sacred mountains that have always been an image for us of life and hope, even in the midst of the dark times, for the grasses of the field, for the lightness of our faith, for the communities that we represent. Oh Lord, bless this image to be for us a reminder that we are tied together by a common faith, but more importantly by a common humanity with all those who have lived in this space for generations upon generations before us. And let us honor not only our ancestors and others' ancestors in this time, but recognize that this banner represents for us our hope for the future, a future in which our generations will gather in this space of Eastern Oregon and honor one another with dignity and love. So bless this work, and bless Helen's hands for her efforts to give us such beautiful images of our life together. And this we ask in Jesus' name, and all of God's people said, Amen. Well, let's get to it, shall we? He brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because he delighted in me. Hear those words again. our theme for this weekend's convention. The Creator brought me out into a broad place. He rescued me because He delighted in me. What does that say to you? God delights in you. Do you believe that? I hope so. If not, I hope that's what a lot of the work that we're about in this particular small group of Christians who gather in Eastern Oregon and walk in the way of Jesus behind the Episcopal tradition, that we are a people whom Creator delights in. You are a delight. Each and every one of you. And we are being drawn into a broad place. What is that broad place? Well, let me offer another passage from the Old Testament that I think even more entices me into this image of entering into a broad space or place. And it comes from the book of Job, chapter 36. And this is what the writer presents. It says, God has allured you out of distress. I love that word. Has allured you out of distress into a broad place where there was no constraint. And what was set on your table was full of fatness. I look at all the candy on your tables and think, okay, yeah, that's how we're going away from this weekend, gaining a pound or two. He also allured you out of darkness into a broad place where there was no constraint, and what was set on your table was full of fatness. A place of abundance, a place of life. When you look out over this amazing space tomorrow, this Grand Ronde Valley, and think about the generations for thousands of years of people who gathered in that space to share life together. And here we are, given the opportunity also to step into that broad place, but recognizing the speaking of which we're addressing in this weekend is not just physical space, but more importantly, it is that spiritual dimension of a place of being in which each one of us find ourselves no matter where you live. Whether you live in the canyons of Canyon City or if you live in the broad space of the Burns Plateaus, each one of us are invited inwardly to come into this broad, spacious place in which there is freedom from danger, from anxiety, from want or distress. It is an entry that God has promised us, that we can be, any people, have the promise to step into that broad, rich space. We have that opportunity this weekend to be together in that kind of a rich, promised space. And of course, part of the struggle for us at times when we gather at a place like this, we kind of feel rejuvenated by being with one another, sharing from each other's gifts, being in this particularly profound space together that we know is a thin place, a place in which we have for generations found opportunity to meet the Holy One and one another. It's sometimes hard to move from that back home. But this weekend, I want you to grab hold of the fact that God's promise to us is for us to share that abroad, to take that promise first and foremost into our own hearts. But then, the rich opportunity to take it with us from this place and from each other's presence back home to those with whom we worship and live and serve and live and move and have our being in him in that broad place. So, dear friends, my hope, my dream, my vision for this weekend is that your heart will be changed. That your vision of the promises that God has for all people, whether followers of Jesus or not, is an entry into that broad space, a space of richness and fatness. Of course, one of the things that I need to ask you is, okay, if all that promise is so good and so powerful, one of the things I have to ask, I found myself questioning as I tried to get ready for this year's convention is, well, it sure sounds good, but how come we're not there? How come we don't find ourselves feeling like or professing to be in that broad place? What holds us back from stepping into it? And of course, our immediate concern might be to talk about all the factors, all the forces outside of us that just are beyond our control, and what else could we do? We're just not going to have the fullness of God's promise. And that's where my job comes in, to suggest to you that maybe it isn't anybody else's fault. If fault is the issue, I don't know that fault is really the right image. Maybe just to recognize that, why aren't we experiencing the fullness of God's promise into a broad place? And I have to stop and think, well, we probably do it to ourselves. That the only person, the only power behind us not knowing what it is for us to move, even this weekend, into that broad, rich, abundant space the Creator has made possible for us and promised to lead us into, is because we just haven't given attention to it. Or maybe what we've done is we've given attention to the wrong things. Maybe we've put our emphasis or emphasis in the wrong place, right? Remember us all growing up in English class with that whole image? That maybe we have not. And I want to draw your attention to the wonderful Jewish writer of the 20th century, whom I know most of you have some familiarity with, Abraham Joshua Heschel's writings, which were prophetic and profound. As a Jewish writer, almost anything he said is so appropriate to those of us who are followers of Jesus as well. But he wrote a book called I Asked for Wonder, which in some ways is really kind of almost in some ways, I think, feels to me like at least almost a spiritual autobiography. He calls it a spiritual anthology. But it's a powerful book. I Asked for Wonder, so I give that to your attention. But I'm going to share with you a couple of thoughts out of that book that he shared. And this is what he writes. And this is what I want to try to get to a little bit as I invite you to open yourself up, heart and mind, to our discussion this weekend about innovative leadership. Is recognizing in ourselves, in our experience, in our churches, in our communities, what we need to really look at and question. Is it life-giving? Is it leading us into a broad place where there is fatness for all? And here's maybe part of the answer. This is what he writes. Little does contemporary religion ask of man. Religion is ready to offer comfort, but it has no courage to challenge. It is ready to offer edification, but it has no courage to break the idols, to shatter callousness. The trouble is that religion has become religion. Institution, dogma, ritual. Now hear this. It is no longer an event. It is no longer an event. Its acceptance involves neither risk nor strain. Dear friends, my hope is during this weekend that we will experience at least a tiny shard of strain, that you might be just pushed. Well, the truth is, I'm going to say a little. I would love to push a whole bunch. I would love for us to be led by the Spirit this weekend to say we need to be pushed out of our comfort zones, out of our places of just kind of silent and still happiness. Don't bother me, I'm in the Spirit. What does it mean for us to be challenged? Because here's our problem. We define self-reliance and call it faith. Shrewdness, and call it wisdom. Anthropology, and call it ethics. Literature, and call it Bible. Inner security, and call it religion. Conscience, and call it God. And this is what Heschel says about that. He says, nothing counterfeit like all of that can endure. None of that counterfeit can endure. Dear friends, I hope you know my heart. I want to see Eastern Oregon, the Diocese of Eastern Oregon, and especially Ascension School, endure, and not just endure, but thrive into the future. And we can only do that if we practice the kind of authenticity and depth of integrity and character that God really calls us to, out of our complacency, out of our comfort zones, out of, oh, I love that worship, ain't it good? Calling us out to take risks, to be strained, to be willing to do the hard work of what it means to follow Jesus into the world, respecting the dignity of every human being, of expressing our love, the love of God for all people, to righting the wrongs of our past, to celebrating the diversity of all peoples. That's what we're called to. Let me just finish one more piece from Heschel's work. He says, it is customary for us to blame secular silence and anti-religious philosophy for the eclipse of religion in modern society. But he said it would be more honest to blame religion for its own defeats. Religion declined not because it was refuted, no matter what you hear some people saying, particularly in America today. Not because it was refuted, but because it became, this is harsh, but listen carefully. It declined because it became irrelevant, dull, oppressive, insipid. When faith is completely replaced by creed, worship by discipline, love by habit, when the crisis of the day is ignored because of the splendor of the past, when faith becomes an heirloom rather than a living fountain, when religion speaks only in the name of authority rather than with the voice of compassion, its message becomes meaningless. Dear friends, you're taking a whole weekend out of your precious lives to be here together, to do church business. I know that you are committed to this or you wouldn't be here. You have a passion, I invite you to bring that passion more and more into that which has meaning. Because isn't that what we want? Is meaning? Is purpose? Isn't that what the world is absolutely starving for? Is the fatness of meaningful presence, of me knowing I am a gift, knowing how precious my presence is to God and to others. So the real question I have for you this weekend, are we willing to do the work? Are we willing to maybe be willing to change up some things we do or think are so valuable, but recognize that they may not be the core of what Jesus is inviting us to share with the larger world? Are we willing to actually be innovators? The ability to change direction is at the heart of innovation. Innovators are rarely stuck in their ways, as they tend to always be willing to change and then change again. The message for would-be innovators is clear. Be flexible enough to change. Now, I know that's hard for Episcopalians. I've contended, I've grown up an Episcopalian. I've been a clergy for 50 years now. And believe me, I've experienced my own ways that I still don't want to change. Just ask me. But I've always contended that Episcopalians are the only group I know that if you ever do something twice, we've always done it that way. We get stuck in some of our ways, thinking that's it, and this is what it's all about, rather than being willing to be flexible enough to change. I came across this phenomenal story. It's not a religious story, well, maybe it is, that demonstrate that willingness to change, and I want it to be a model for us over the next few years here in the Diocese of Eastern Oregon. How willing are we to pick up the dream and to change? It's a story of a young man who was 29 years old at the time, that he moved from Philadelphia to the big city of Chicago. And he was a man who came with $32 in his pocket in 1891, about the same time kind of as when we were starting here, right? He came to Chicago with little in his pocket, but a huge dream in his heart. He wanted to have his own business. And he was a go-getter and an entrepreneur. So he picked up the idea that he was going to set up a business selling soap to the wholesale trade. Now, that wasn't particularly profound, but being the person he was, he knew that there was a way of an incentive and a value-added way to incite people maybe to take his product. So what he started doing was so innovative and so different. When he would sell his soap, he would also give the people a can of baking powder. Mm-hmm. Well, what he found out in that first year is the baking powder was more popular than the soap. So being the brilliant entrepreneur and innovator that he was willing to change. So guess what he did? He started selling baking powder. Went pretty well, but again he thought, well, let's value add this on. So you know what he started giving away with the baking powder? 2 packs of chewing gum. Believe it or not, the chewing gum was even more popular than the baking powder. So he went into the business of gum. And his first 2 brands in 1893 were the names of them were Lot of Gum. Oh, that Lot of Gum. And I forget what the other one was. Some name that doesn't come to me, but I loved a Lot of Gum. And then the next year, he introduced 2 brands. 2 brands that you're going to know the name of, one of which was my favorite as a kid growing up. Anybody want to tell me what your favorite gum was? Because most of you are my age group. What was your favorite gum growing up? Juicy Fruit and Wrigley Spearmint. This was William Wrigley who started that gum company. as a result of selling soap. You know that Wrigley's today is by far the largest international company selling chewing gum around the world, along with Mars bars and all the other things you're going to be eating while you're here this weekend. But that was William Wrigley's ability, within only a couple of years, to shift where the need was, where people were willing to go, to be an innovator who was able to change things up. My friends, that's what God is calling us to, is to be a people willing to evaluate where our dreams are. We're going to be hearing about dreams tomorrow. But I want you to know that one of the ones that comes to me constantly is even from the hymn that you have on your table. And I'm going to invite you to be sure and take one of those. If you're not familiar with the Cove hymn, we're going to be singing it this weekend. We're not going to do that tonight. I thought that we might, but I want to save this time and make it special for moments with Bobby and Bronson in particular, who will come up in just a moment. But we're going to make sure that in the morning we teach it to you if you don't know the song. Bishop Remington wrote that as the Cove hymn, which has been sung for 100 years at each of the camps, particularly at the end of each evening. But from the original song, from which he took both the tune and essentially the words, and you've heard me preach this, and if you haven't heard me preach this sermon, you're going to be hearing me as Amy and I are coming out to join you over the next year. You're going to be hearing me preach about this dream. But this is the second or the third line that I want to just draw your attention to. In the original Paul Dietz song, he wrote this to the tune of We Would Be Building. He says, "Oh, keep us building, Master. May our hands ne'er falter when the dream is in our hearts." Just like William Wrigley had a dream in his heart for what he wanted to be in Chicago, we have a dream, or should have a dream, for who we want to be in this space of Eastern Oregon. And I want you to be willing over this weekend, just even if it's just a bit, be open to change. Be open to evaluating who we are and what we do, and how can we reach more powerfully the people around us with a story of meaning and purpose, a story of entering into a broad place where there is fatness before us. Richard Rohr has said this in one of his books, and I leave it with you. He says, worship of Jesus is rather harmless and risk-free. Worship of Jesus is rather harmless and risk-free. Actually, following Jesus, he says, changes everything. If we would be followers of Jesus, things change. We change. Our church changes. Our future changes. Dear friends, join me with the dream of going into the future with that willingness. Amen.
Amen.
All right, before I invite the Spencer Fossick family to come up and close our evening, I just wanted to give a brief history for you of our story with Caretakers of the Land. They're going to tell a little bit more, but many of you might remember that in 2019 convention here at Ascension School, we, the Diocese of Eastern Oregon, dedicated 80 of the 100 acres of Ascension School's land to habitat restoration and to Indigenous cultural revitalization. The land was given to us in trust by the French family. And so this was our first step in Indigenous revitalization, restoration, reparation. Now, that dream began many years before that, and I would say that dream probably started to come alive when this little guy showed up for camp, little Bobby Fossick showed up for camp at Ascension School. as a child, and he came back. He came back here to his home, and he put that dream, he put that vision in our hearts. I wasn't here, but I got to step into it. I got to come alongside that dream, and we should be so grateful that our eyes were opened to the opportunities ahead of us. We occupy the lands of the Cayuse, the Umatilla, the Walla Walla, and the Nez Perce people, and our work will never be done. We will not make that cheap land acknowledgement. We will work. And so we want to invite Bobby and Brosnan and Meadow, I don't know if she's coming up to Meadow, forward to welcome us to this land, to their land, the homelands of their people. And they will close us out with our evening prayer. Please come.
The Palouse. Good evening, my friends and family. Inishwa Niksha Ticham Kilufla, Bobby Fosik Shiapotimki wa Nikshash. My name is Earthwatcher in our native language, and Bobby Fosik is my given English name. Payunishwa Kuthlani Chikulawit. Payunishwa Kuthlani Nayanawia China Chatni Tichampa Wiwalatitpa. I'm really grateful that we've all arrived here upon this land, this sacred land, the place of many springs and streams. I give thanks for all of our safe travels bringing us here. Kuthlani Nami Outni Chush. I'm grateful for our water. Kuthlani Shiwala Kapkapnimwala. Grateful for this river, the Grand Ron River, that flows down into the Snake, that flows into the Big River, that flows down into the ocean and connects us all. Yeah, when I came here as a child, my parents split when I was young, and then my father ended up marrying an Episcopalian woman, who many of you know, and she sent me here, and I almost thought I was getting punished, but I ended up really loving it here. And I was met with a lot of open hearts and open minds, and that's rare to find in today's world. And so I kept coming back, and no one ever tried to change me here. Everyone respected me for who I was and just wanted to know more about me and hear my perspective, which I also thought was pretty cool, because there's a lot of people with a lot of shoulds in the world and a lot of pressure to change into something that we're not. And I kept coming back, and then as a teenager I came back to help out, and always loved this land and loved the feeling of being here on this land, and I think that was one of the main things that drew me here. And then as I became an adult, kind of went down some different roads, and ended up meeting Brosnan, and then we had our daughter Meadow. And we left for a while to go kind of work on ourselves a little bit, because we were being called to some big work, but we weren't in the space to do it yet. So the Creator put us on a path to go find ourselves so that we could come back here more connected and more whole in ourselves. And that path is still happening. It's an ongoing process, growing and changing and stepping into our power and our potential. And it happens every day if we allow it to. Payunashwa Kuthlani Nami Nakshwa Kishwit. Nakshwa Nakshash. Naksh Timna. I'm grateful for the one heart and one mind and one body that connects us all. We're all sharing the same breath of life. We're all in that same hoop gives us all life, and we're all here today. We're all working towards a regenerative future for our children. That's what we're here doing. We're holding that vision. We're finding out how we're going to do that. And we're putting it into action. And sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes the accountability of our histories burns. And that fire, though, can forge us and change us and make us better people. And so as we came back, I came back here to come volunteer, and I heard I just felt like I needed to come back and check it out and see what was going on. And I heard talk about dismantling the doctrine of discovery. And I thought, wow, I've never heard white people talk about this before. And I come from a white family and a Native family. I come from mix, so I've heard both growing up. I grew up around a lot of racism on my white side, so I know that it's a real thing. It's not made up. But as we came back and I heard these conversations, I was intrigued to hear that this was being talked about openly among people, and that they're working towards justice, racial justice, environmental justice. What does this even mean, and where do we start? So we kept coming back, and I don't even know if I had 32 bucks in my pocket, but Patty actually asked us to come back and to help with our perspective, to start helping manage the grounds and manage the way that we did things with the land here, and to manage the garden. And so that started us down this path that has kind of changed and grown along the way from, what happens within our hearts and minds, and from the, what our community's needs are, tribal, native community and non-native community alike, and what the needs of the land are as we develop our relationship with the land and can lean into and hear what it has to tell us. So it's been an ongoing journey for the last decade of us living and working here. And it's been a beautiful process. Sometimes it burnt. Sometimes it was really beautiful, and overall we've grown a lot together. And I can look out at this room and see a lot of people who've had a lot of deep conversations with, and a lot of deep moments with, and that we've grown through a lot of stuff together this last 10 years. And we've made a lot of big leaps and a lot of big decisions. And the land and the water has been witnessing it this whole time. And the Creator's been witnessing it this whole time. And in our worldview, the Creator already laid out our trail for us here. Our path is already lit. And it's lit up each season by the new foods that make themselves ready for us each cycle and guide us along our trail. And all these plants and animals were already here long before us. And they showed us how to live here. Everything we have, we got from them. They showed us how to take care of ourselves because we were like infants. We didn't know how to clothe ourselves or feed ourselves. We didn't know how to take care of the land and take care of each other. So the land and the water and the animals and plants gave us instructions to follow. We call it Tamanuit, the natural law, the big law. And now, the world has been disrupted for thousands of years and cast people about to go leave their homes, finding new places to live. And so now there's a lot of people here, a lot of newcomers here, and still arriving. And in a way, kind of similar, like infants that don't quite know how to live here. And when we try to put over the land something that isn't the way that it was already laid out for us, it causes a lot of turmoil and causes a lot of disruption to the natural systems. And we're starting to realize that, because not that long ago, not even a couple hundred years ago, we could have drank out of any one of these streams. We would have kept a little cup on our belt so that every time we pass a stream, we could take a drink. You can't do that now. The water's so polluted all the way up into the mountains. I can hike all the way up into the mountains, and they're polluted all the way at the top and all the way to the ocean. And, when the water's rushing hard in the spring, it's a nuisance that everyone's trying to get out of here. And then in the summer when it's gone, everyone's fighting over it. And this water isn't a commodity. The water is our source of life. And I don't think that's to be debated. The water is our source of life, and when we treat it as a commodity, just like if I treated any of you as a commodity, it would probably hurt. And So we got to look at the water as our relative, as our caretaker, and we have to take care of it. So that's a part of that agreement that was made between us and the plants and the animals and the land and the water, is that we would always take care of them and they would always take care of us. And when they lose their voice and when people forget about them and can't hear what they have to say anymore, that we have to be their voice. And so this law has guided my life, for quite some time. And it's still revealing itself to me in time, every cycle and every season, of what is really going on, what it means, and who I am, and what I'm here to do. And I give thanks for all of the powerful, mostly Native women in my life who pushed me into this role and into this position to do the things I do, and that have prepared me. And I give thanks for Pat and for Amy and for all the staff here and everyone that has come through here for being really vulnerable. I've said some things that, some people would get really upset about, about our relationship with the land and the water and with each other. And, we've all sat in that fire and let it change us and grow us, and it's guided us along this far. And as I came back to help out as an adult, it wasn't until then that I stepped into this calling and started bringing this vision out into the open, that then my family started to tell me that this is our ancestral summer home here in Cove and Union, this area, Catherine Creek, Mill Creek. This is where we always came in the summer to fish and to camp, to dig roots and pick berries. And then we'd make our way to Wallowa Valley, and we'd go all the way back to our winter camp at Wallula. And so we had a big range from Wallula up into these mountains, up into the Grand Ronde Valley, Wallowa Valley, and back. Just like a lot of our Palouse relatives. Us Walla Wallas, we're labeled Walla Wallas, but we're all related on that lower Snake River down to the junction of the Snake and the Columbia and Wallula Gap, and what everyone now calls Tri-Cities, is where a lot of our families wintered at. And then we went and did our thing in the summer in other places, following those foods, following those ancient cycles that were in place for thousands and thousands of years. It's a long time. I don't know if our minds could even fathom what it would be like to live in some way for thousands of years. One of my teachers, Thomas Morningow, would say, counting how many generations we've been here is like counting stars in the sky. And I've said that and had people come back to me and they say, well, I did the math and it would be. I said, well, according to what? And it's, just food for thought. But so we've been here following this law for a long time and in a very short time. And it wasn't perfect. We're all working through things and growing all the time. But within a short time, like I said, I sit here and watch our topsoil blowing away all the time. I don't know how there's any more left to blow away. I sit here and watch the continued devastation of our streams and our river here. 70 miles of river cut off, just the Grand Ronde alone. One of the only undammed rivers in Oregon, flowing into the lower Snake. 70 miles of it cut off, though. That's an act of terrorism in my perspective. It fits the definition when you destroy someone's foods and their lands and their way of life. 70 Cayuse and Walla Walla, plus massacred over by La Grande for just digging roots and picking berries. And this is the work we carry on revitalizing. And so, it's a fire to go and do something that our ancestors were massacred for doing, or to speak a language that my great-grandma would have been whipped for speaking in public around white people, or, to go to places that we've been pushed out of, or to hear people say, man, my grandpa worked so hard to get rid of the Indians and the wolves, and here you guys are all coming back? Yeah. This isn't right, but I sit in that fire, I let it forge me, I let it make me sharp. I just feel it all, I let it all come up, let it all move, and keep moving forward, following that big law that was put in place, because no matter what, the water is the law. The water is the law no matter what. No matter what ideologies we want to test out, try out, So as we think about innovations, we have to put the integrity of our ecosystems in the center of that. And then we have to put indigenous voices in the center of that, because that's the voice of that people and of that law. We're a part of the land intrinsically. We're not separate from it. We've been here for a long time. And we have to put the water in the center. And this is hard because everything's about making money and moving fast and more, better, faster. But you can see where that's gotten us. We're in turmoil, mental, physical, spiritual turmoil. You know, all these better ways, what have they brought us? Poison water, you know, intense suicide, depression. You know, we had to bury one of our little campers. She's 8 years old. And as I left that cemetery, seeing all my friends, so many of my friends, you know, I'm 35. So many of my friends in that cemetery. Fentanyl, suicide, alcohol. You know, there's a better way. It's not that much better, so. But we're here working towards something better.
Yes.
And it's not always going to be easy. Our beliefs are going to be challenged.
Yes.
You know, but it's going to be okay. Because life goes on. And like I said, the natural laws supersede anything we can think up and write down on paper. And as an elder that I've been blessed to spend some time with and stay in contact with this last year through our work with canoes and with reconnecting to our ancestral villages along the Lower Snake and Tulalula, Carrie Schuster, Jolene's aunt, she told me this spring, she said, and she prays to Jesus, she follows Jesus. You know, I would say she follows the Jesus way and our ways. And she said, you know, all these faiths, Episcopalian, Presbyterian, Catholic, whatever it is, they're all perfect in God's will. But they're visiting faiths to this land. And the original faith of this land is following this big law and singing all the time. Singing all the time from the heart. And so she put it in me to just keep singing all the time from my heart. And it fortifies us and prepares us for, you know, what lies ahead. And we're always told to be mindful and to be prepared for what lies ahead. You know, whether we think about that in the far off, you know, we could think about that as afterlife, or we could think about it as just getting back home from here, or getting here from home, or making it up to the berry patch, the fruitful land. And then when we follow these laws, it's beautiful. And so I'm going to open up my heart tonight. I'm going to share a song of this land, of this big river that ties all of this land together. So I just invite you all, if you're able, to just stand up. Just open your hearts and mind to the sounds. Guys have led us here tonight. As the song is saying, oh, my beautiful people, you need to be mindful and prepared for what is to come upon this land. And we carry on about in this ancient way, prepares us for that fruitful place, that fruitful land. Like I said, could be thought of as heaven. I feel that heaven is right here on earth and we take care of it. Whether it's where I go after I die or whether I make it up to my favorite berry picking spot. To me it feels about the same. There's a lot of things challenging the health of our lands and our waters. But through opening our hearts to the Creator, through being willing to shed layers and grow and come together, I have faith and trust that the solutions will come through our hands and our hearts, and that we can apply them. And may what we do here be just a drop in the bucket and ripple out into the world, as the water goes beyond time and space. The water remembers everything. I'd like to ask our elder Louis to come up and give a few words to close us out. Hi, Al.
Well, fellow wanderers, my wife Jolene has made a business out of helping me on my journey. And I appreciate that, Jolene, thank you. And Alexis is from Spokane. She's also helping some Spokane folks on their journey. Yes? Okay. I don't know who Bobby was or is. I just learned about him maybe about a year ago. And I said, because you know how it is. My dad said to me one time, when he was leaving me in jail, we're going to turn this over to you? Well, thank goodness that God has grace to help us grow. Give us time to grow. Hard lessons, good lessons, easy lessons, but lessons that we have to be open to. That's what Pastor has talked about this evening and has hammered all over his life. His whole life has been trying to help you open up to your humanity. We, people of color, have been in the way of a lot of things, and we're not backing up anymore. We're here, Bobby's here to help us all understand the next steps of our journey. So I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you folks opening the door to let people like Alexis, Jolene, and I, man, it's a young kid, Bobby, planted a seed, and look what has happened. Wow. So I'm humbled by the possibilities, as Pat has talked about, of land. That's what America is all about, is land. How do we cut up the pie, I call it, in a way that keeps the peace? Well, we're still here. And it's no secret, like our Wasco chief said to me, the late great Atwag, we call him Atwag, means his heart's gone back to the earth. Nelson Wollaston, it's no secret, we want it all back. So we have our marching orders just to stay as who the Creator made us and try to use his life, her life, I'm learning, to grow, to heal together. Even President Biden said that. Hey, let's heal together. And I was surprised when I said something I could relate to. So thank you all again, Pastor. I know it's always a risk, and I'm glad you folks took the risk for my brother here to just take him in the family. And so thank you. That's all I really have. I'm a mucky muck with in Oregon, but I'm here as somebody that's asking for help. So that's what I hope you spend the weekend doing, is learning how to help not only yourself. Bobby talked about all of the elements out there that need help. and help yourself. All right? Hey.
You guys can sit down. My name is Bronson Spencer, and I just wanted to say that thank you, Pat. That was awesome for that invitation. I love a good invitation like that. And I just want to invite everyone too, as we go into this weekend with that invitation, to be really gentle with yourself. Because to go deep involves a level of letting go. When to go deep, you have to let go of control. And so, what are some essences of letting go? It's being gentle, breathing, relaxing into what we're feeling. And so I just invite you all to just be really gentle with yourselves and each other, and to support one another and lift each other up. Because that's how we're gonna get through this, is by supporting one another and just knowing that we're all in it together. And it can be really intense feeling all the feels, but knowing that those are opportunities, all these challenges, whether it's this weekend or in life, they really are here to serve us and service to us. So I just invite everyone to be gentle with yourselves, be kind to yourselves and each other, and I'm excited for this weekend. Thank you.
So with that, I'll ring the bell 3 times, and the way we do is we'll ring the bell 3 times, and we'll raise our right hand and say, aye. So I invite you, if you wish to join, and we'll turn to the right 1 time. Up, up, down, high, Kwame. Raise your right hand. And I guess, I should say a few words about the bell, real quick. I used to be really resistant to this. I used to say, this isn't our way, I don't know why we use these things. But then my bell kept wanting to travel with me, and then along the way of letting it travel with me, I heard more stories and heard more things, one of which is from one of our leaders. Armin said, as soon as you touch that bell, you're a slave to it. Already touched it. Then another thing I once heard recently this summer, as we were doing an intertribal Thule gathering camp, was a bell was gifted to me from a man who has a son named Waptasi, and that means to pray with the feather. We used to pray with feathers, and then the missionaries took our feathers away and outlawed it, but they would let us ring a bell. So, and there's only certain times we could get together, like 4th of July, Christmas, and put on our regalia. So we've had to conceal some of our teachings underneath some of these things to keep them going, but they obviously haven't faded away, and they're still here, and now I enjoy ringing the bell and singing, and I feel like it connects us, and so that's all.
Good to have a seat, please. Just a moment. What a profound example of teaching us willingness to change, but to be always present. Thank you, Julie and Louie, for coming in. We're going to do introductions in the morning, so we'll get an opportunity to introduce our other guests as well. So with that, we're going to send you off for the evening. Please be careful as you're traveling into La Grande. As you can tell, for those of you from some of the larger metropolitan areas, it does stay dark out here quite well. So be careful out there. You back here at 8 o'clock. And again, Georgia, where are you? Please stand, Georgia. Are you standing, Georgia? Sorry, don't worry, she'll get me back tomorrow. So, Georgia, at 8 o'clock, I wonder, for those of you who don't know, if you just look for the old red barn up here and go behind it, you'll find it. But we'll try to have maybe somebody available out in front of the office area to make sure and point you. So if you'd like to take a look at the work that Georgia's been continuing for us for the archives and now the new site for that, we'd love for you to see the new shop and go with that. So Georgia, thank you for doing that for everybody. And that's at 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock otherwise, back in here. And we look forward to time together. God's peace to you as you go tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
You follow the sidewalk. Are you saying?